All right, just giving
Okay,
it.
already, and my cheeks are hurting. Like this is it's too
It's been
early
some
for that.
time since we went together, so this is good. I'm almost thinking, Joshua, you and Roger were on the same memo with clothing.
What are you wearing, Roger? I can't
White
really see.
t-shirt.
Like,
Just white t-shirt? Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah.
Kind of like
I
you.
just
Simple,
about
right?
wore a white t-shirt as well, but then I was like, maybe not.
Oh,
I
that's
could go
funny.
change though. Make Biniam feel like the black sheep.
The lone duck? Yeah, it'd be harder for me to throw on a t-shirt over a bow tie. Good to see you, Aldo.
Good to see you guys.
So Frank
Absolutely.
and so Frank's not here yet, and then who else we have?
Oh, Chris says hi, by the way.
He says hi. Okay,
Yeah, just saw him yesterday, and yeah.
okay. He won't be able to join us quite yet, I'm guessing.
No, not yet.
Okay,
Soon.
so he's still recovering.
Mhm.
And then I know Rob was mentioning he just double booked tonight, so we'll catch him on the next round for sure. Well,
Anyone else? I'm trying to think. No, that's it, hey?
I think it's just Frank, right? So there's four of us, and then Chris,
I think
Frank,
just
and
that we're listening to.
Chris,
Or
Frank,
waiting for.
and Rob, right? So, yeah. So Frank may join in. Oh, let me see here. Oh, I think he saw our thing. Let me make sure I'm not leaving him in the wind here.
Yeah, he saw it.
Yeah. Okay. So he may pipe in the midst of our intro, which is quite all right.
Just 7:02. Let's all be patient here.
Yeah, so last week
Oh,
he
there
said
he
he
is.
wouldn't be able to make it, but hasn't said anything since then.
He just
Yeah, he's
entered the
connecting.
room.
Oh. Hello.
Hey, Frank.
hey,
I just wanted you to know that I was holding these guys back. They're like, screw Frank, let's just start. And I thought, no, guys, let's.
that would be the kind of thing that they would do.
My goodness, I'm really doing something.
This is the anti-friendology
Yes.
podcast.
That's right.
How to be a shitty friend. Just talk bad behind their back.
Throw each other under the bus.
That's right.
Oh, this is great. Well, I think we have everyone here now, right? Everyone's accounted for except for Chris and Rob, so they will join at some future episode. Frank, nice haircut, by the way.
Yeah, it's like all of a sudden, like, oh, that's better. It's getting kind of shaggy there.
You know, for some reason, I don't think Roger knows what you're talking about, but that's all right. Well, I'll go ahead.
We haven't even started, and already children are knocking on my door.
No worries.
Oh, okay. Put it by my bed.
Okay, I just wanted to. I'm sorry.
How are you, Binyam?
Okay.
I'm doing all right.
Good,
I had a
good.
fairly productive day. I feel productive today, so.
Good.
Yeah. Okay, let me just do a quick sound check with y'all. How am I sounding on you guys' end? Good?
Good.
Everyone,
Crystal
okay,
clear.
Jonathan, everyone can hear Jonathan. Jonathan, sing us a song.
Hello.
All right, everyone hear Jonathan.
Hello.
Roger, who has yet to say a couple of words.
Sound check.
You sound melodious, my friend. And Frank, we've heard. And Joshua, good. Okay, I think everything's queued up.
By the way,
Yes.
remember you guys were complaining about my earbuds
Yes.
From last time.
Yes.
Do I seem to be sounding okay this time?
You
Yes.
sound normal on my end.
Yeah,
Yes,
you sound
no.
a lot better.
Yeah, sounding much better.
Okay. Good.
Was it just a
Good.
bad pair of
Nice,
earbuds?
Decent quality. Can you guys see those?
Nice.
Yeah.
Good quality wrap around the anyways,
Excellent. Glad it's working out.
pay
Good.
big, get better.
That's how
What's
it
the
goes.
topic today?
Today, it's the principles for being a good friend.
Can we narrow it down to a few, because there's too many principles to talk about the whole thing.
Perhaps that's a good way to proceed, especially by way of contributions.
I have no preference, but
You know,
yeah, because I mean, like these are really each topic could be either a whole episode or at least a half.
one of the things that might be helpful to Josh, I'm thinking, is for us to throw the ones that are like, hey, this is my biggest contribution for this one here from my vantage point or something along those lines. That could help narrow it down, eh? All right. Well,
So who would do that then?
oh, we'd all do that. Like we'd all kind of go around and say, here's what my contribution is. We'd interact on those kind of, do you know what I'm saying? So you'd be like, here's what I think is a really, really important heavy hitter when I think of principles of being a good friend. I think it is taking jabs of friends when they're really down or whatever else. And then we'd all talk about it.
Yeah, but I guess my point is, could we start with someone that would choose? Because if we're just like, I say my thing and then I say it for a minute or two and then Roger says his, etc. Then we're just going to scratch the surface.
Right.
On each one, if that makes sense.
Sure. It'll be an evolving.
So, I mean, anyways, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we can just play it by ear and start talking if you want, or we can, dig into one of them that seems to be really. For example, I'm really excited about talking about candor. So candor is such a cool concept that I think I have a lot of thoughts on.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's almost countercultural in our society to actually speak the truth to people and be honest and open, right? We probably don't use the word candor very often, but honesty or openness or authenticity, I guess, are correlates. Anyway, that's just my thoughts. It's up to you guys though.
It'll be great, especially for the spontaneous unchoreographed aspect. But nonetheless, it'll start off with our cue music. So here we go.
Okay.
Good evening. This is Friendology. Tonight is May the 17th, 2021. In this episode, we feature our normal cast: Joshua, Jonathan, Roger, Frank. I am Binyam. And we are still missing the pleasurable company of our other comrades, Chris and Rob. We are looking forward to having them join soon. Tonight, our topic of conversation will be seemingly broad, and yet we'll try to narrow it down to some things that we feel are really important. We're talking about the principles for being a good friend. Do enjoy this episode of Friendology. Well, guys, good to be back together again. Joshua was already mentioning moments into this recording that his cheeks were already hurting. So it's always good to reconnect. Before we get into our topic of principles for being a good friend, let's just do a quick touch base because it's been an extended time since we've last hung out or seen each other or kind of recalibrated. And so how have you all been in the midst of 3 weeks? Yeah, 3 weeks, right, Jonathan? Goodness.
Yep. Yeah, 3 weeks.
It's a crime not to be able to hang out. But let's just hear just a quick summation of how we've all been holding up, thriving, how life has been going. Joshua, let me start off with you. How have things been going on your side of the world?
Things have been going fantastic. I cannot complain, and I've really actually been. I'm not joking here. I'm being totally honest. Been pondering friendship as a concept a lot in the last few weeks, and not just friendship with guys, but with just anybody that's close in my life. And I've been really, really pondering how grateful I am for such amazing friends, and deep friends, and loyal friends, etc. And so I've just been enjoying that, despite a pandemic that limits that limits the connections. I've still been thoroughly enjoying all of y'all. Though that being said, Binyam, haven't chatted too much in the last bit, and Frank, and even Jonathan, not as much. But that's why we're here, partly. So looking forward to this.
I feel the same way. Roger, let me cue you in here. How have you been doing?
Oh, been doing great. Busy, grateful to be busy, and just managing the business of being busy.
Those are new glasses you're wearing, by the way, are they?
Oh, I've got too many pairs.
Okay. I was like,
I switch them up depending on what I'm looking at and all that. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Jonathan, how have you been doing?
That's a loaded question. Recently, I've been having some work troubles, some miscommunication at work that resulted in a significant impact in my pay. And that was not handled as well as it could have been, or as maturely by management. So I'm trying to figure out what the next step is going to be. If it's going to include me smoothing things over with management, or what other options are out there for myself. So that's been my main thoughts for the past almost week now, and I've been a lot in contact with Chris because as some of you may know, he was in a very similar position in a very similar company right next door to where where we live. So yeah, I've been connecting in with him a lot, just because I know that he's a good person to talk to in regards to this kind of stuff. So yeah, that's where I've been at, money wise and emotions wise as well. And other than that, I'm really enjoying my new house, really loving the neighbors as well. It's really good.
That's a good combination, isn't it? Good neighbors, great place. Yeah, it doesn't get better.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm sorry for your troubles. That's really tough to hear, and unexpected too, isn't it?
Yeah, unexpected, but
I think I speak for the rest of us that we look forward to the day when we will enjoy your house and your neighbors too.
Yeah, I was actually preparing for to host tonight. So, but yeah, in the future get-togethers, I will definitely have my doors open. So hopefully we'll be able to have the next session here.
We'll cue them in for sure.
Yeah, but we'll see what happens.
Frank, brother.
I've been fine. Just kind of, I don't know. It seems like even though not that much is going on, I seem to somehow each day seems to fill up right till bedtime with all kinds of things. So, yeah, I've just kind of been kind of cruising along, and work's been steady but not super busy, which is kind of where I like it to be. And then yeah, like a little bit of social interaction that I get's been great. And yeah, I don't know, I don't really have like a big up or down to report this week, but definitely just kind of cruising along at the same altitude, which is it's okay with me.
I was just thinking, Frank, how you were saying cruising at the same altitude. That's my kind of a day, especially when I'm at work as an Uber driver. I don't want big ups and downs,
Yeah.
I like something that's just, well, I mean, I enjoy my riders immensely. We have memorable times, and yet I still like that kind of a day where I wasn't cut off, or, where I wasn't part of a significant accident. Yeah.
It's a bit better than sort of the feast or famine kind of situation, right?
I totally hear you. Yeah, I agree with you there. Well, let me give you, you guys know just a little bit about what's been going on in my life, because I've been sharing that with y'all. But just to recap, my license to drive with the city hadn't renewed quite in time. And so I was, for the first week and a bit, without work, waiting for that license to get renewed. Before it renewed, a check engine light came on my vehicle again. The previous time when it happened a couple of weeks before or prior was due to a recall issue with a computer glitch in the engine. So they're able to rectify that then, but it came back on 2 weeks later. And so I took that back into the dealership. And just as I did that, and as I'm on my way home from that, I got my notification from the city that my license was renewed. So was able to drive, but I had no vehicle because it's at the garage, and it was at the garage for another week while they were checking into it with the likely scenario that it needed a new engine. They're able to check it and recalibrate it. The bearings were all good, so they didn't need to get a new engine. But they said, let's keep it just for a few days longer to see if the issue reoccurs. It finally did reoccur at the end of that session. So over the weekend, this past weekend, they kept my vehicle to try and find out what to do. And I was supposed to get word back today, but I haven't gotten word back yet. And so I'll find out hopefully tomorrow if I get my vehicle back or if I'm getting a new engine. In the meantime, this last week, they finally were able to get a loaner car to loan me, which was nice because it meant I could at least do some deliveries for Uber Eats. So wow, what a week it was. And on top of all that was just the uncomfortable aspect of the uncertainty, because I was just sitting there waiting, and that was not a fun experience, just kind of waiting. So for the first few days, I did something that I didn't want to do, and that was I started applying for jobs. And why I didn't want to do that is because I just sort of been down this, I was preparing for this track, guys, of working for myself, and building a business and something along those lines. But I felt applying for work was kind of like rowing in the opposite direction of what I'd aspired to head towards. And then after a couple of days of doing that and being discouraged, I went for a really long walk. I went for like a 3-hour walk, 3 hours. That was a bad idea. It was like at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at nighttime, just went walking.
I think there's a term for that. It's called a hike.
In the city a cement hike. Oh my goodness. Anyway, but it was just to do a lot more thinking. And during that time walking, I just sort of said, no, you know what? I'm still aiming for this, and I still want to keep fighting for what I want to aim for. So the last few days, I've invested a lot of time in putting together my website, which has been kind of an ongoing project. But I finally just said, I'm going to focus on this and get that done and start getting some things in order to plan for this track here. And so it's been a week of uncertainty and some clarification along the way, even though I'm still in that zone of striving. So kind of like you, Jonathan, these things, we don't plan for them that way. And yet when they happen, it's like, and yet in the midst of it, I am still thankful because given the way most of us struggle and have challenges, I see others who are struggling in different ways. I'm thankful for this kind of struggle. Like, I'm thankful for this kind of struggle. It's economic in nature. Yes, it is not easy to calibrate with. And yet I'm thankful for it because I still have my sanity of mind. I still have my priorities in check. I still have my ability to process and feel the feels. I'm not feeling like totally and utterly like devastated as far as how to prepare for it mentally. And so I really value that. So that's where I've been. Not to make it any extended, but it's a lot that's gone on in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Oh my goodness. But so glad to have you guys. Thank you for your encouragement along the way. I really, really appreciate your expressive, intentional, and explicit offers of saying, how can we be good friends? Roger, thank you for your phone calls. Frank as well. To Joshua, you've reached out. And Jonathan, I so appreciate you guys' friendship along the way. So thankful for this camaraderie of this brotherhood and why we're doing what we're doing. So just before our cue music, Joshua was saying, how do we hone this very broad conversation of principles for being a good friend? Because I mean, you could spend a good few days on what this could look like, right? But I think what I'm hoping to hear from you guys in this episode is narrowing it down to what you feel it from your experience. This is something that really makes the essence of being a good friend for me. This is the principle that I sort of can't do without when I'm pursuing intentional friendship, especially amongst guys. What does that look like for us? Who wants to take a first crack? Joshua, you're really excited about a certain word. Do you want to start us off on that one there? And why? Go ahead.
I am excited about that word, but I'm also thinking it may be too deep to jump right into that one. But sure, what the heck? Why not?
Absolutely.
I like the word candor, which anyone look up that definition. What is the technical definition of candor? Anyways, to me, it's just being open and not just hiding the truth, right?
When I think of the word candor, without even thinking of a definition, I'm thinking of forthright, like speaking the truth.
Straightforward, honest, and open. But of course, with tact and with tact and politeness and kindness, of course. But those who speak only the things that the person, the hearer, wants to hear, to me, that's not a really good friend. I mean, there's maybe zones, there's times, there's eras to be that person. Like someone that it's early on in a connection, for example. Maybe they're not safe enough, or they're not the relationship hasn't developed enough for candor yet. That's fair. That's reasonable. But I think if you really want to dig deep into a friendship and you want it to be real and authentic and genuine, which I do, and I think most people do, I think that we have to say the hard things sometimes. Of course, candor, when it's like, hey, you look good today, is nice to hear. Everyone loves that candor. It's the when you said that over there, you were kind of a jerk, and I just wanted to let you know, because I know you're not a jerk, and those sorts of conversations, the really hard ones to say. Binyam, we've had some candor conversations, and I remember one specifically, probably a month or two ago. I'm not going to say what it was about, but just I remember you coming to me and saying, "Hey, you said something in this context, and it kind of bothered me." And I'm like, "Oh," and I didn't even cross my mind, not something that I would have thought of. That as soon as I heard it, I'm like, "Oh, I am so grateful that you said that to me, because I need to hear this in order for me to grow both as a person as well as a friend. I need to hear the things that bother other people. Doesn't mean I always agree. Sometimes I won't. But still, just being safe to have the connection, I think, it's best if it's safe that both parties can speak with candor. What do you guys think?
Before we jump on to another one there, let's just kind of see if we can circulate around Josh's point here. Anything else that you guys are thinking when you think about Josh's contribution of candor, and why that may be helpful, and something that is supportive there? When I think candor, Joshua, do you know what I'm thinking about? Because it takes guts to be candorous with your friend. Do you know what I'm saying? It takes courage to be able to say to your friend, I love you, but I need you to hear this. And usually when we hear the word candor, I don't know about you guys, but my mind is going into the context of when I hear the word candor, it usually is followed by something that's going to be challenging to listen to, right? Rarely do we hear candor in the term of good things that we're going to say, like, hey, Frank, you've got an amazing haircut. I think it looks really sharp on you. I'm glad you weren't a slob and you finally, I'm just kidding. But I usually don't think of the word candor, Joshua, in the sense of the good things that are easy to talk about when we're appreciating or, admiring something about our friends and what they're exhibiting. But candor seems to come up for me when I'm thinking of, oh, great, I have to have this conversation, and it's going to be a challenging conversation, and candor is going to be necessary in this, which for me seems to have a prerequisite of courage. This is going to be a courageous thing. I'm hoping this friendship, this connection here has that strength that it can handle the substance of what we need to talk about, right?
Absolutely. And by the way, a synonym, I'm just looking at Google right now, is Frank. Congratulations, Frank. You're synonym today.
That's brilliant.
Or frankness.
That's funny. That's funny.
That's good.
Topic of today, Friendology is Frank.
I love
Frankly.
Oh,
man. The audacity.
Roger, I know you're thinking something. What's going on in your brain?
I just, in terms of candor, in terms of what I would bring to the table in friendship, what do you?
Well, I don't know.
Let's start with candor. I like what Josh's contribution was. Stick with candor for the moment.
Yeah, stick with candor. Yeah, I think candor for me is on a spectrum too. Candor to me is on a spectrum in the sense that depending on who you are, I have to gauge how much candor I can give. I think I can, I've grown to be a person who can receive all types of candor or all levels of candor. But I think I'm learning that not everybody can receive all levels of candor.
Mm.
And looking at it as it being on a spectrum and then saying, okay, gauging the person, listening to the person, trying to understand the person and making a determination of how much of my candor that person can manage is something that I've, I don't say struggle with, but I pay attention to because I can be very direct. Sometimes it's too brutal. So I kind of have to gauge it and weigh it or give it in bits and pieces or temper it based on examples of situations that emerge that require showing the candor within the context of it actually happening sometimes, particularly when it's not something that's really good to tell. Yeah.
I like that, Roger. You're saying it's also a two-way street. Candor has to be received, especially when it's being offered.
Yeah.
I forgot to kind of count for that. That's a really good point. Jonathan.
I've got a question to pipe in here.
Yeah.
Do you guys gauge relationships on that kind of aspect? And do you find people that you are more in line with in terms of candor of giving and receiving, versus being better friends versus not so good friends if you're not in that same zone? Or how do you guys find that relates in the broader spectrum to all of your relationships?
I'm
It's a
going to
good
say
question.
that I do. I think that there are other factors that I gauge, the depth or quality or whatever term you want to use of a friendship. But I think that where they lie on that spectrum of candor is most certainly a big factor for me. Do you guys agree? Or
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I definitely find the very, very similar thing for myself. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
In my sense,
Frank, I
Jonathan.
interrupted. Oh, sorry, guys.
So who did you interrupt? I was trying to figure that out too.
Frank was going to say something. Or sorry, Roger was going to say something.
Oh, was I? Okay, I don't think I was, but I'll say something anyway. To Jonathan, in response to Jonathan, I don't know. I used to be a rejector or a diminisher, where I found candor was not enough or not present in friendship, relationship. But I've been changing. I've been changing in terms of accepting people where they are, because coming to terms with the fact that not everyone's going to be where I am in life in terms of my thought processes and emotional responses and my awareness and understanding of the world. Everybody's going to be different where that's concerned, and that ties in with candor. So lately, in recent years, I'm not using candor so much as a barometer in terms of how I rate people in friendships. And there's some people I know that are not particularly honest or straightforward, and I work with them, or I try to work with them. And that's outside of other things. If there are other things that are egregious and problematic, if the person is a thief and has no candor, then I don't want to, you know what I mean? It just depends on what else is there. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And on my end, I guess the way I approach it now, like I once upon a time was a very non-confrontational person. I just kind of sort of move away from context that I didn't feel comfortable dealing with. But now I'm more not abrupt. I'm more, I hit head on, if you will. In my mind, I have this picture of the elephant in the room, right? So I think of the elephant in the room. That's when usually candor for me is being exercised, saying, okay, let's talk about whatever it is that's elephant in the room. And so I usually try to be a part of environments that allow for that conversation, or I want to have prerequisites before engaging relationally with others that this is going to be a dynamic, right? Whether it's friendships or relationships, I'm like, hey, if something's amiss here, I'm going to bring attention to it. I'm going to make sure we're talking about that thing that we don't feel comfortable talking about. And so that is for me almost one of those things that I do now is I want to make sure that that is something that is like there's an openness to that being expressed. And of course, I want to earn the trust to be able to engage in those conversations. But logistically, it just seems like a necessity for me in the way I connect with people. So now that's a good question, though.
I have a thought on this. I think that this leads to perhaps another principle, and I don't want to take over in this regards, but shared values, which is for me, candor is a pretty high value as far as closer connections. And I agree with Roger that there are people that you have to use less candor with for whatever reason, and I'm fine with those people. Or those contexts, I should say, because I mean, in some cases, I'm not as as open or frank or straightforward as I would like to be. But I guess at the root of this is that I value people, or I value growth and knowing the truth. That's really important to me, rather than just feeling good and living in sort of ignorance is bliss kind of mentality, right? And so I'd rather have a real relationship, a real connection, where we talk about real things, than everyone's smiling and everyone's happy and we joke, and the elephant in the room is not addressed. It's just over there, and we just kind of, you know what I mean? Happy, joy, great, wonderful. But to me, growth, courage, honesty, straightforward is a pretty high value of mine. Mm-hmm. And I recognize that dichotomy doesn't necessarily have to be black and white, but I also recognize that different people value different things, and that's okay. So I value that, but I recognize that there can be whole groups of people that are friends that may not value that as much.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Who wants to go next? I've got mine all geared up, but I don't want to. I don't want to seem too eager.
So eager.
I'd say go ahead.
Really? Okay. All right. So my contribution is vulnerability. The principle of being a good friend, I think, is a choice. A choosing to be vulnerable. And the reason I value this as like my biggest sort of, this is so important in a really good friendship is it's a scary thing, I think. It's a scary thing for us to reveal what's going on inside of us. I think we are wired, for the most part, in a cultural context where we're taught to protect what's inside, because if we don't, then we'll get hurt fairly easily. And we've had experiences along the way where others have burnt our trust, hurt us, used things that we've shared in confidence against us. And so we sort of move down this pathway where we start learning how to protect and how to isolate and how to keep people a little bit further, which does not help friendships grow closer together, I think. So for me, why I really value vulnerability is it's that optimistic and openness to a horizon that says, I'm not sure what's going to happen when I take what's sacred and important from here within and I entrust it to you. I've had experiences in the past where it hasn't gone well, but I'm continuing to strive for what could be. And so before a relationship, here's just a picture that's helped me from a talk I heard many, many years ago. Before a relationship happens, a revelation needs to happen, right? So Jonathan, when you and I first met, it was like, hey, my name is Biniam. I'm going to give you something about myself. Here's my identity. My name is this. And then you were able to do the same. And then over time, for each and every one of us, we sort of build the revelations that we're offering out there as we feel spontaneously and mutually inclined to share with each other. We start building the platform of what seems to be a really good relationship as we grow in trust and saying, okay, what I entrusted to you, you've done well with so far, and I can give you more, and then slow by slow. And for me, that's the picture of vulnerability. And in the context of vulnerability, I found a tremendous epiphany in my personal life where once upon a time I longed for it, but I did not know how to do it. And not knowing how to do it, everyone that I interacted with, even though they had high estimations of me, I never felt like they knew the real Biniam. Do you know what I'm saying? They never knew the real Biniam because I never felt I could trust someone with what was really going on inside, because I felt a lot of sense of shame and struggle and challenge of what I was wrestling with in my seasons of life. But the big paradox that I discovered when I actually saw it being modeled and then I learned how to be able to share vulnerably was this liberating freedom, this liberation of being able to say, hey, I've offered myself out there and my worst nightmares didn't come true. Like for the most part, people were gracious, people were safe places, and they were able to facilitate and help me be okay with me and be okay with the way I am. And so vulnerability, I find, is a really, really big one for me. And on top of that, another paradox with vulnerability, some people might say vulnerability is weakness because, oh my goodness, you're just getting all mushy and soft and that kind of stuff. But honestly, it takes guts to be vulnerable. It takes guts to say, here's what's going on inside my heart. Here's what's going on inside my mind. And I'm going to put that out there. I've got an online platform now. I'm doing that in a much more open and expansive way. And yet it takes a lot of courage to say, here's what's going on inside, instead of just saying, nope. Thoughts, ideas, challenges. While I blow my nose.
I've got a couple of thoughts and actually tied into both thoughts so far. And that is that for me, I'm a very, very big picture thinker, and being more vulnerable and having more candor with people and allowing more candor is the long-term path of least resistance.
Help me understand more, Jonathan.
Yeah, I was just like, I know like a lot of people are like, no. But for me, if I can be vulnerable with somebody,
yeah,
like I don't have to worry about so many different things, right? I just lay it out on the table, boom, we're good. If you've got issues with that, we can talk about it. If you don't like me about that because of that, okay, cool. I'll move on to the next person. Path of least resistance. Having the most amount of most amount of candor possible with other people and allowing that with me means that I'm able to filter out, as much as possible. The shit from the wheat from the chaff. How about that? And just be able to move on with my life in the easiest way possible by doing the hard thing at the beginning and then setting that precedent.
I love that.
Thanks, man.
It's really good,
I
Ashley.
absolutely love that, Jonathan. I think that's you're showing that you've got this internalized courage, that you, by being honest and open, and here's who I am, and there's my vulnerabilities. You're saying my goal in life is to, not in life, but in this part of domain of life or aspect of life, is to find amazing people, not to be accepted or loved by all. Yeah. Because it's like, if someone then doesn't like you, well, then they don't like the real me. And then I guess that it is good that it happened sooner rather than later.
Yeah, exactly.
And I wasted minimal time, hence the path of least resistance. I love that. I love that. Screen it out right away. But it does, what you're describing, Jonathan, does take courage, and it takes a solid, robust self-esteem to be able to do that. Because if you don't, like every rejection is not just, I've been rejected, but the real me, like the inside, this part of me that is the softest, squishiest, most vulnerable part of me was just rejected. And man, if you don't have a solid self-esteem, that's painful.
Yeah.
Which is why a lot of people don't do that, what you're describing. But I really like what you're saying, Jonathan. I love that.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I haven't struggled with that in the past, where I have exposed myself and I've been like, this is the real me. And, oh, you don't like this? Oh. So I've definitely been burned by that by myself, but long term, I feel like it's more beneficial. And then also, yeah, I think I did a lot of work convincing myself that my foundation, I am solidly placed within unconditional love, and nobody can take that away from me. And from that place, I'm able to go, oh, this is the real me, and talk to a bunch of different people as a result of that. And I think that a lot of people don't have that solid foundation that is based in something, and that makes it more difficult for people to be able to go down that road of being vulnerable and having more candor and being able to receive more candor from others.
Here's what I was thinking when I was listening to you, Jonathan, with your explanation, and that is all the work is at the front end that makes it easy for the long run, right?
Yeah. I'm a
of-
lazy person at the end of the day.
Right. Now, I was watching, like, from my observation, working with parents for however long I was working in my previous career, one of the things I noticed is that those who did a lot of work on the front end when their kids were super young had a forecast that was a lot more favorable than the parents who neglected the work at the front end with their kids and then struggled in the long run, right? And so, again, even like an athlete, for example, when they do a lot of the hard work at the front end, they're conditioning themselves to make whatever grueling commitments that they're doing easy down the road, kind of thing. As a tree planter, my first couple of years were my investment year, where I really sucked at the job before I got really good. And then it was just like easy, smooth sailing, right? So I love that for that purpose. So for our listening audience, one of the things I would probably even encourage you to consider, if you're not here yet, because as Jonathan and Joshua were just saying, this requires a robust, is how you guys put it, a really solid foundation of, how would you guys say it? Acceptance of where you're at, and I think the word you used, Jonathan, was self-love or unconditional love for yourself is what I was understanding you to say. Knowing that you're not going to be moved around by other people's assessments, because when you're playing on other people's agenda, dear listeners, you're already done, by way of you're easily moved by their acceptance instead of having that rock solid foundation within yourself from which to launch off from. So no, that's a really good offer
sort of
there.
a self-worth, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. Self-worth is a good way to put it. Yeah, really good.
I want to hear from the silent too. You've just been sitting there.
The silence too
Sorry, I
sages.
was letting you guys run with the conversation.
Okay.
We're getting excited here. That's all.
I don't know. I have many different thoughts percolating in my head, and they might come out in jumbled form. But certainly, in terms of candor, I think that's definitely an area of growth for me. So I think, Binyam, I was similar to you. Maybe still working on sort of getting to the point where I can be more authentic with everyone around me. It's certainly like I kind of see like there's different ranges of friends, and there's certain people where it really is worthwhile to invest that kind of energy and that kind of frank conversation to get
you said over the word frank.
To get kind of past those kind of grievances and differences that you might come up with, or even more positive things that might strengthen your bond. But there might be other people that maybe more on acquaintance side that is that really someone that I need to be open up with, like, and be vulnerable with, and have these intense conversations with. For me, no, like that's kind of like, we need to keep things lighthearted there. So yeah, it's sort of like, it kind of depends. And at the same time, I kind of feel like, friendships tend to be kind of always in flux. In a way, sometimes, people head in different directions in their lives, and then we reconnect later on. And sometimes, there's, there isn't necessarily a linear pathway, kind of from day one till day whenever, when, I don't know, we all pass away or whatever. So yeah, I mean, it's sort of, I think but I mean, these are definitely, in terms of thinking of, this is a good friend, this is a best friend, this is a close friend. this is someone that knows a lot about me and things that I might not share with everyone. Definitely, I think these are absolutely strong features that can form, great bonds and continue to strengthen friendships.
Mhm.
I guess sort of like at the same time, like to kind of be the devil's advocate, like a strong foundation of self-esteem. I don't know how common that is. I think it's common amongst some of you folks, but in terms of the general population, I honestly don't know. But I certainly think that there's a large number of people that struggle with mental health, and that, that maybe they need to start somewhere else in terms of how to get to the point where maybe they can do some of that upfront work. But I don't know that it comes naturally to everyone.
I so
So,
agree with you, Frank. I so
yeah.
agree with you.
Can I comment on that? I think I agree with what you're saying. And through the filter of kind of what Jonathan was saying about he takes the path of least resistance, I think most people don't. And most people, as you say, don't have a robust sense of self-worth or self-esteem. And so they can still get to a point of vulnerability. They can still get through that courage, have the courage, etc., and have those genuine, deep, open, vulnerable connections. It's just that it doesn't happen right away. It takes a lot longer. They'd have to test the waters. It's like it's a very gradual revealing of gradually more and more vulnerable aspects of themselves. And hopefully, if they have a good connection or two, or hopefully more, that they gradually will move to more vulnerable and open, deeper connections. And I know that happens. I see it happen for sure. I see it happen with people that have a more unstable sense of self-worth, and it can be really good. So yeah, I agree with you, Frank.
Joshua, I might just disagree with you at the outset. You were saying most people don't take the path of least resistance in the way that Jonathan was describing, because he was describing the long-term plan for those who have a solid foundation of what's this term you were using, guys? We were using the term
self-esteem.
Thank you. Yeah, self-esteem. Whereas I think everyone is really choosing the path of least resistance. It just depends where they're planning to invest it. At the outset is where most people, I would say, are investing the path of least resistance, where they're like, let's not have those awkward conversations. Let's not have those engagements that take a lot of investment of vulnerability at the opening, and so when they don't do that, they're taking a path of least resistance by way of saying, hopefully these problems will just kind of figure themselves out without us actually having to deal with them. So that for me is an expression there, I would say, from my observation of most people taking the path of least resistance at the front end, which doesn't pay off in the long run. Whereas what Jonathan was describing is the path of least resistance, waiting for the result over here while doing the hard work over here at the front end. That's what I was understanding there.
Yeah,
and
I think that.
Go ahead, Frank.
Go ahead.
But I think that's a very admirable way to go, and that's a kind of an ideal situation.
Sure.
I think it's a challenge for many people to do that.
Yeah,
totally.
But absolutely something to aspire to.
Frank, let me just put you on the spot, because that's a really amazing point. And I think a lot of our listeners are going to be in that place where they're like, hey, we like what we see here in the way that our chemistry is, but where would you suggest they start? That's a big question for you. Okay. No, and I was only asking you first and foremost, just because it's a good observation.
Yeah, I'm not really the person to be giving advice on that area. I mean, yes.
I appreciate you playing the devil's advocate, though, because that's really.
I mean, everyone, like sort of like people that I've connected with and made friends with, it's simply been started on a basis of common interest. And hey, let's go do this thing that we both enjoy doing together, and let's have conversations, and it kind of evolves organically from there. And
I love your devil's advocate, because I think it will serve our listeners that way too, right?
So yeah, I mean I'm going to pass the torch on in terms of how to get to the situation where maybe you can kind of from the outset get to have the difficult conversations. I have more thoughts on that, but yeah, in terms of how to get to that point, I don't know.
Okay. Hang on to those thoughts here. Let me just prime Roger, Jonathan, and Josh, just because I think it's almost like one of the elephants in the room. We're talking about some wonderful things. People are like, great. And I remember what it was like when I first heard someone talking about their struggle that I resonated with. And I was like, we're in the same boat. And I'd been looking for years, guys, years, through my teen years into my 20s. I'd been looking for years for a model to say, here's what it could look like when you're choosing to be vulnerable out of a strong base of I forget this term now, self-esteem. There we are. My goodness. What would you guys say? Roger, do you have any ideas there?
With respect to what?
With respect to how would you help some of our listeners who are saying, I would like to experience this strong establishment of what could be in good friendships that we're saying necessitates in a good, strong self-esteem. How does one get to that point of strong self-esteem, strong awareness of who they are and being okay with who they are when they may have not grown up with that?
Yeah, the self-esteem part is a work in progress, and pivoting off the lens of Jonathan and Frank with respect to candor or authenticity. What I found in my experience is that I'm not able to offer authenticity. I'm not able to offer engagement. I'm not able to even tackle the aspect of self-esteem until I'm able to bring who I am and knowing who I am. I remember a lot over the years that I, for a very long time, have not known who I was as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And I would represent in what I thought was a friendship in a representation of myself that was false. And that false self that was presented invariably didn't bring authenticity and didn't bring self-esteem. It didn't bring the value that one would want in friendships. So I think one of the things that I would say, I hope I'm answering your question. One thing that I would say is that being able to know yourself and being able to true yourself, I think is fundamental to everything that we've been talking about so far in terms of self-esteem, in terms of authenticity, in terms of candor, all these different lenses and pieces that we've been saying, knowing who you are. And I struggled with that. And I struggled with and I still struggle. I'm better at it now, but I wasn't as good as it before. And because of that, the self-esteem part is still something that's a work in progress for me.
Awesome.
Did any of that make sense?
Absolutely. I could totally relate with you there too, brother. Yeah.
Oh, I just kind of rolled it off the mind and the heart.
It's best done that way. Jonathan, any insights?
Knowledge, yeah. Go ahead.
For me, lots of years of meditation, lots of years.
Sorry, Jonathan. I'm looking for like a quick 5-minute application that our listeners can apply and be fixed.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. 5 minutes, just only 5 minutes. Every day.
I'm sorry, Jonathan. That's a serious answer you're giving. You're saying it took years though for you though.
Yeah, it took years. Specifically, the main one was starting with meditation, moving into all of the different self-help books. I know it's like a cheesy, like, really, you're going to suggest that? Hey, I mean, if it works, right? Just and positive self-talk. Positive self-talk. I remember for years, I was, this was probably like 15 years ago. I would say I am like the bottom of the ocean. I can see the waves running around, all the motions going on up top, but it takes a big thing like an earthquake to actually get me like moving and riled up. And that started settling in. And as a result, I've been able to, of those few things, been able to build my self-esteem and build my confidence in myself that I am who I am. I've got control of my emotions. I've got control over what I want to have control over within my own life, within my own sphere of control. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's
Oh,
good.
Did any of that make sense? Because I feel like I pulled a Roger there.
Don't do that to Brother Roger. He was inspired in the moment, like you are.
Yeah, exactly. But I will also follow it up with this.
Yes.
If it stinks, it means it's because I just pulled it out of my ass.
Well, this one has
Oh.
potpourri applied all over it, so it smells good.
A little bit of crude humor there for you.
Joshua, brother, you're the resident psychologist, and give us some insights.
Self-knowledge, self-insight, I think is really important, as Roger was hinting at. I'm using those terms. I assume that's what you were getting at, but anyways, these are the terms that I use. I think, and then you mentioned, Jonathan, positive self-talk. I think both of these are really helpful in developing that self-esteem so that you can enter friendships and do well in relationships and friendships. But it works the other way around as well. So friendships and genuine connections are the best things to have rather, that will build that self-insight. Like how, so yes, read books, absolutely. Read books, meditate, ponder, journal, etc. But man, there's nothing like getting some feedback from a good, well-reasoned, caring person that wants the best for you and that speaks the truth and says, hey, over there, you're kind of you're being a jerk over there. You need to smarten up. But over there, I really appreciate what you did.
Goodness, that's awesome. Yeah.
Right. And then you start to be like, okay, I know who I am. I don't think that I'm better than I am. I don't think higher, more lofty than I am. And I don't think worse than I am. Right. Oh, woe is me. I'm the worst person in the world, which is never true. Right. But instead, developing that accuracy of view, so like you can see yourself as you really are, and in the context of wonderful, great relationships where they help you with that. Yeah, and then those messages turn into positive self-talk, right? So yeah, we can develop the positive self-talk ourselves, but man, it works really nice when we can just echo what someone else told us. Hopefully a lot of times, right?
Jonathan, are you just chomping at the bit to say something?
Yes.
Okay. Before you do, hang on here. 2 bits there. I couldn't, like as I was listening to other gents, I was also thinking about the piece that Josh was adding on there. And that's my experience as well, brother, is that it wasn't until I was in that kind of a safe environment with trustworthy people who made it possible for me to open up, who modeled what it could look like, right? And for me, that was in a 12-step program. And so within the 12-step program there, my goodness, I learned so much. But the biggest thing I took away from my time there, and I still am attending there, is just how to be able to talk about those things that are most scary for most of us. Jonathan, shoot.
Got a challenge, a suggestion for the people listening.
Okay.
Just like people go for runs together with their buddy, they get a workout buddy, they get people that they play music with, to grow skills, to grow physical muscle mass, musical ability, whatever it is. Heck, even like business partners, entrepreneurs sit down together, because like if one person's in the zone, right, you don't want to be the odd person out. What about doing something similar for this? What about finding somebody that has listened to maybe this specific podcast, or wants to go down this kind of road, and saying, hey, why don't you and I team up, and let's just try this for just a little bit, and then see what happens. And if it works out, cool. If it doesn't, well, there's a good experience and a good experiment, and you can laugh about it with your friend down the road and be like, oh yeah, remember that weird time that we tried doing this weird thing? It really didn't work out. But whatever happens, like, doesn't matter. But just maybe try it. See what happens.
Nice.
Just
We've talked about candor. We've talked, sorry, I'm interrupting someone. Oh, yeah. We talked about candor. We've talked about vulnerability. Gents, what other things would you throw in there? Because those are some two heavy hitters. And I'm really happy with those suggestions. So if I were listening to this podcast, I'd be saying, I got my money's worth from just this conversation so far. But what else would you guys also suggest by way of principles for what it takes to be a good friend, a solid friend?
I think we're gonna have to get into like part 2 of this at a later date, because I think we're sitting at almost an hour here. And
I was
know
going to
for-
solve the rest of the world's problems in the last 5 minutes, Jonathan, after the next 2 minutes here, but
Hey, I already gave the world's problems the solution.
Okay, can I say this tongue in cheek here?
okay, go ahead, Joshua.
I think we need luck. I think one principle is, sometimes you just meet an amazing person or group of people, and it's like, wow, how did I earn this? You know what I mean? And I mean, there's often other factors involved there, but there's a lot of, I don't know. We talk about the word privilege, right? Like, I feel very, very privileged to be part of a group of amazing people like yourself. And of course, I'm not going to be woe is me, I have no value. Of course, I bring something to the table as well. But still, and obviously not just this group, but the greater group, all the people that I know that I've been around, spent time with, and that have contributed to my development and who I am. And I feel really privileged and honored and lucky to be alive in this time and to be connected with such amazing people. So luck, can I throw luck as a principle?
That's totally fair. I do like the suggestion, maybe a part 2 that will give us a bit more to roll into. Does that sound fair, gentlemen? Awesome.
Yes.
Whew. Well, I am so invigorated is probably the word I'm looking for. Invigorated by the way we're accessing this topic. It is a really big, daunting one, but I find when we get into the nitty gritty of what are some of the foundational substantials, it stretches my mind. And so thank you for participating this way, gentlemen. So next week, dear listeners, we are going to continue part 2 of this. It's going to be just as rich because we value rich friendships. We value rich investments. And so without further ado, let me cue the button for the finishing music. But even as I do so, I just wanted to say to you listeners, thank you for making time to listen to this podcast. We're a bunch of guys who share a deep friendship for what could be as we explore this world from a community that invests intentionally. Tonight, we're talking about principles of good friendships. We take this really seriously, even as we practice what that looks like. And we want to model what that looks like to you, our dear listeners, as you also listen in. We want to inspire you that we don't have to get this perfect, but let's fumble our way together. Let's fumble our way together because being human, we make mistakes along the way, but we grow from those mistakes. And so hopefully your friendships will grow rich. Thanks for joining us this episode. Friends, thanks for being a part of this again. It was fantastic.
Inyam, you're a wordsmith. You always manage to talk right to the end of the music and make it sound concise.
Thank you.
I don't know how you did it. I gotta show you guys something.
All right.
It's in my little room office, and you see down here.
Lucy.
Wait, is there what are we looking at?
Is that Lucy?
Is she dead?
She almost looks like she's dead.
Is she dead?
She's just lying lifeless. I'm like, is there something?
She's fast asleep.
Lucy.
Lucy.
Maybe she is. Lucy.
Lucy.
Oh, there we go.
Hi, Lucy. Hi, how's it going, puppy?
Hey, Frank, did you see that I featured your puppy on my website?
You did?
I did.
I looked at the website, but I didn't see the dog.
It was the carousel of pictures that scrolls on the second page.
I'll have to look again.
Yeah, I featured you.
That's awesome.
I know.
He was already Instagram famous. Now he's going to be even more famous.
Instagram. Yes. So yeah, I don't feature people unless I have their permission. But I thought, I hope yours won't mind.
Yeah, he can't really sue you. So don't worry.
Excellent. Friends, I just want to say, I do. Yeah, I'm so thankful that we're doing this together, and I think there's something really deep here that not only we're experiencing, but we're also throwing out as a beacon to others who are watching. So I'm so thankful for you guys coming alongside.
Have there been any podcast responses yet?
Not yet. I've posted the first two. I've yet to do the rest. With my new acumen, Roger, in website creating, I also have a plan to throw on a website as well for our podcast. The question I wanted to ask you guys is, would you rather me put your individual emails for accessibility for fans who want to ask maybe specific questions, or would we rather just have a group email that we all have access to as we respond to feedback there?
If you're going to put my email, I would prefer to set up a different account rather than my personal account.
Okay. So even if I like did a bunch of emails for all you guys that you could change your passwords or whatever, that is related to the Friendology, that would be a better dynamic. Is that what you're
For
saying?
me, yeah, either that or a group one.
Okay.
I'd suggest kind of like info@friendology.com or whatever it ends up being.
Questions or whatever. Yeah.
Friendology at Gmail. I wonder if it's taken.
Well, I will check into all that, but that's what I have in mind, Roger. And then the marketing can really proceed forward and saying, all right, let's bring some more attention to this because.
Yeah. And then, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, and then I was just going to say, and then, maybe adding on, Frank@friendology.com and, Joshua at Friendology or whatever
Sure.
the website is. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
At that point in time, yeah, I'd be totally comfortable having my own email address, and that would probably be a little bit more accessible for people to say, hey, I just want to ask one person a specific question.
Yeah, especially if they resonate with.
I can tell you from experience, it's going to cost you too much money to do it like that. So it either is going to have to be each person's email or the info @ because when you start going with GoDaddy and setting up those email accounts, whether it's GoDaddy or Wix or whomever, your cost factor is going to increase by the number of users per domain name for the email.
So now what I was thinking of doing there from what I learned so far was having the website info like contact part hooked into that general one, the info @ whatever, Friendology. But the other ones we'd feature on it, like we just write them out and they'd be through Gmail, not through the website per se. Does that make sense? Yes, I wouldn't actually like wire those websites through the website. The website would just have its own for sure, the general one. But each of ours, it would be an individual one is what I was thinking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the websites, the individual ones would still be through Google or Gmail, sorry. Whereas the main one through the website, it would just still be with the one there that we'd all have access to. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be good with that.
Okay.
All right, I got to get on a phone call to Phoenix, believe it or not. Does anybody know what the time zone is there now? Is it on? I'll Google it.
Isn't Phoenix the same as ours?
Yeah. I don't know if they're still there till 8 or 9, but I've got to try Phoenix people to see if they'll answer me.